have finally found the best way to make banana bread, and I was shocked to find out that this particular ingredient makes all the difference. The secret, the key? Yes, my friends, as simple as this. Bring it down to the banana. Banana bread, it's in the name. Like, I never thought of this before. You look at recipes online and it's always about sour cream or what kind of acidic ingredient are you adding for it to be more moist. So it's sour cream, it's yogurt, it's mayonnaise. Do you brown your butter? Do you not brown your butter? Do you put nuts? Do you not put nuts? Do you use oil or do you use butter? What kind of flour do you use? Do you use white sugar, brown sugar? There's so many variables that can change the texture of banana bread, but I never looked at the banana. Isn't that dumb? Every recipe calls for sweet, overripe bananas. But how ripe is ripe? And how ripe is overripe? And how ripe can we get it before it becomes rotten? So that's what we're doing today. We're gonna see how ripe can we get this banana and just kind of bring it to the brink of being rotten. Trust me, it's worth it. It sounds disgusting, but it's really good.
You have to remember that ingredients never really taste the same unless they are highly processed. That's why recipes are guides, because depending on where you are in the world and what month it is, your bananas are going to be very different from my bananas. So to bypass finding out a particular variety for this recipe, one that might be hard for people to find, I thought, why not try and just make the best of what you have? I've made banana breads with slightly bruised bananas, spotted bananas like these ones, and really dark leathery bananas. Most people will use the last two. In fact, overripe bananas are said to actually have more nutrients than a regular ripe banana. So let's take it a step further. I got this idea when drinking wine. Most great ideas come with wine. And I was thinking about la pourriture noble, or noble rot wines, where grapes get infected by a beneficial fungus, dry out, and thus have a much higher sugar concentration, producing an extremely sweet wine. So I got my bananas as brown as possible, and right before I felt like they were about to go over, making sure not to break the skin, I placed them in a jar and in the fridge to avoid any issues and to slow down the rate at which it was ripening. I waited about 10 days, checking them every day until they started releasing this extremely sweet caramel-like liquid. Now, I wouldn't eat these raw, and I wouldn't really recommend it either. I did taste them, however, and they were fine, but I'm sure they would be perfectly safe. As long as there is no mold on them, you should be okay. But these are perfect for cooking. Just use common sense where needed. Once peeled, these are perfectly easy to mash. Mash them as smoothly as possible. In a separate bowl, we're going to mix together 1 1/2 cup of flour. So this is spoon and leveled, meaning you spoon in the flour into the measuring cup and then level it with a flat surface, not packing the flour in tightly. Then we're going to add 1 cup of packed brown sugar. This time, really pack that thing in. 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, and a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Set that aside. Now for our butter. I got this little trick from my sister when she did this with her banana cake last year. We're gonna measure out exactly 130 grams and place that into a small pot over medium heat. We're gonna continuously mix this until the mixture kind of like becomes brownish and separates, but make sure it doesn't go black because this really happens quite quickly. And immediately take it off the fire once it's nice and brown. This should take about 15 to 20 minutes. Let that cool completely. For our wet ingredients, we're gonna mix together 2 large eggs, 1 1/2 cup of our bananas, 1/2 cup of sour cream, and a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Mix all that before adding in your cooled brown butter. We're then going to slowly mix the dry into the wet using a fork or a spatula. Why is that? It's because you really don't want to overmix this. I mixed this for about 1 minute just to literally incorporate it. But don't mind the lumps and bumps. We don't want this to be a smooth batter. Just like when you're making pancakes, you don't want a silky smooth batter. Grease out a bread pan and place your mixture inside and level it with a spatula. I like to let this rest 20 minutes before baking it. This is going to go into the oven at 180 degrees Celsius for about 35 minutes. I seriously don't understand the whole toothpick method. I've had some great and terrible success with it. I feel like it's such an unreliable way to check cakes. Now, if you cook at home, please just invest in a very simple food thermometer. It'll quickly become one of your most used tools. Just like how you measure the internal temperature of a steak, you can do the same thing with breads and cakes. For this banana bread, we are looking for the center part, which is the furthest away from any heat source on all sides, to register at 93 degrees Celsius or 200 Fahrenheit. Take this out of the oven and then let that rest for about 10 minutes.
Okay, moment of truth. I already like the texture of it. It does feel nice and dense and moist. This is probably the only time it's actually appropriate to use the word moist, because you really want this to be really nice and moist. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a couple slices and then we're gonna taste it. That looks beautiful. Wow. If you can kind of look at that slice, it is just absolutely beautiful. I can feel it in my hands. It's just like really kind of like almost spongy, but not in like a dry, spongy way. Like spongy in a really good way. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a go. Look at that, that is perfection. When you touch it with your fingers, they should come off kind of like this, kind of like shiny, which means the butter really kind of just came through. Oh my goodness. I'm seriously not exaggerating. This is probably the best banana bread I've ever made in my entire life. It's so lush, soft, moist. The banana flavor really kind of pushes that threshold, because you can taste the, not funkiness, it's not there yet, but it's just, it almost tastes like banana extract. That's how much more developed the flavor is from those blackened bananas. This is so moist that even tomorrow morning, I'm 100% sure it's gonna turn out so good. Oh, I have to stop because I could eat tons of this. Guys, I know everyone who ever had a cooking show ever in the world and in the universe and on YouTube tells you to try these recipes. If there's one time you believe me, make this the one time, because that is so good.